Hello my friends. Very early on in this channel's history, I made a series of videos that examined the question of what makes a narrative gaming masterpiece, and focused on how some critically acclaimed video games with a story-focused design philosophy manage the problem of ludonarrative dissonance, a problem unique to the video games wherein the player's own actions in the game can conflict with the story being told. That series was significantly more focused, but today I want to discuss the topic more generally, in a way that not only matters to games, but also to anime, books, movies, film, or any other media. What exactly is a masterpiece? The most basic concept of a masterpiece is a product of art or media that is perfected, without flaw. It is the culmination of an artist's entire life of training, their entire skill set brought into a single entity. A masterpiece is so amazing that any rational person would see it and realize its perfection. This idea, however, is widely recognized as unrealistic, a false idea, an impossibility to the point of absurdity, only created for the function of promoting ego and clout within the artistic community. The idea of the masterpiece is something we are quick to reject as a society, but why have we? I would wager this is because of the growth of subjectivism in society at large. The idea that objective values do not actually exist, and that any individual is thus free to assign value as they see fit, and are equally correct and true in how they assign those values. Now anyone who has spoken with me at length knows that I am a massive opponent of subjectivism, and the logical proofs that show subjectivism to be self-defeating is one of the simplest proofs in philosophy, dating as far back as ancient Greece. That said, however, while it is absolutely the case that objective values do exist, it is also the case that many values are subjective. It is an untrained orator who uses subjectivism as a defense of their ideas while asserting arguments objectively when they are on the offensive play. Just look to Digibro if you want an example. However, our culture as a whole has grown to more appreciate things like taste in media to be a subjective matter to a large degree. Since we consider perfection to be a non-existent for media, must we also give up on the idea that any media can be a masterpiece? I don't believe so, but in order to protect the concept of the masterpiece, we will need a new and functional definition, a definition that objectively asserts a state of quality that accounts for subjective tastes. Well, my friends, I encountered this idea long ago when listening to the Super Best Friends Play channel's podcast. They were discussing Shadow of the Colossus, a highly acclaimed and beloved PlayStation 2 game, where you wander a massive field to find and defeat large, mysterious creatures. On that podcast, Pat gave a very concise definition. They were discussing flaws of the game, whether it was a masterpiece or not, recognizing that it wasn't perfect. When Pat said that he calls it a masterpiece because there was nothing more that he would want from the game. That regardless of recognizable flaws or shortcomings, the quality of the thing is not diminished. I found this to be very insightful and an idea worth extrapolating. A masterpiece is any media from which one wants nothing more. In a subjective sense, this statement is essentially the same as to be without flaw, because the flaws are weightless when compared against those positive qualities and their effect on the person observing the art. While a rational recognition of these flaws could allow for and encourage different choices and solutions for future artistic endeavors. Yet there is no desire on the part of the observer to see any such changes implemented on the game, show, or art piece currently at hand, only for future games and future ideas. The effect says in the observer, this ought to stay exactly as it is. So what are some further implications of this? For one, it means that there may be no actual agreement between individuals as to whether something is a masterpiece, yet still be a masterpiece in its experience. The masterpiece can also be made without the specific burden of being created by a master, nor be the result of the execution of a perfected skill set. The product of lesser skill could, and most likely frequently does, create the effect of a masterpiece in at least some of its audience. I think this implication is particularly functional in our current time because the vast majority of creative work are the result of the cumulative creative contributions and innovations of large teams. It is unreasonable to give all the creative credit to a few members of the whole team, or to require every person on one of those teams to have a masterfully honed skill set as a prerequisite for the product to be considered a masterpiece. This definition also removes any sort of political requirements for something to be considered a masterpiece. A piece of art needn't have any degree of financial success, nor a minimum requirement of popularity, nor any significant influence on further works of art or copycats. This doesn't mean that a work of art can exist as a masterpiece outside of any social factor. After all, at least one person, and any person for themselves, must engage with the piece for the effect to come into being. So there is a minimum of an individual social interaction. But any particular person's experience of the masterpiece effect can't be denied by external social trends. However, not every implication of this nothing more effect is a positive and validating one. For instance, a single person could at one time experience a piece and have the effect, but at another time of experiencing the piece not have the effect and thus not consider it a masterpiece anymore. It also means that people with lower expectations, standards of acceptance, or higher degrees of tolerance and forgiveness will experience far more masterpieces than others. And while that may seem like a good thing, let's not forget that the nothing more effect actively does not give weight to flaws that are factual and rationally recognizable. Remember, the subjectivism aspect of this idea does not change the facts of the product itself, but only of the experience of the observer. Should our society shift to seeking the experience of the nothing more effect, rather than on the creation of things that cause the effect, we could easily stagnate the desire for creative progress and improvement. What the nothing more effect accomplishes is that it saves the concept of the masterpiece while making it an objectively identifiable subjective experience, while simultaneously preserving an objective fact of quality, value, and flaws included in the piece of the media itself. It allows us to preserve an important human concept of progress while also respecting our personal engagement and emotional reality when it comes to engaging with art. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the video, you can support the channel by subscribing and ringing the notification bell. We don't pay anyone to advertise the channel, and our community is still small, so the only way we can grow is with your help. By all means, leave a comment below. If you want to comment, extrapolate, criticize the idea, I definitely welcome that. Videos go up every Saturday, so I hope to see you next week. Thanks again, and remember, stay true.